Hey, and welcome to the next 90%. I'm Erin.
I'm Caitlin.
Justin.
I'm Matt.
Today, we're going to have a discussion with our very own Justin Dobbins about some of the struggles that he's had leading up to the diagnosis of his PTSD and mental health, which has become a very large issue within the community.
Hi, how's it going? One of the main reasons for starting this podcast was to talk about what comes after weight loss. And, for me, one of the biggest struggles has been mental health. I've been pretty vocal about that. And hopefully on this podcast, this episode, I'm going to open it up and be a little bit more, upfront and honest and kind of dig in a little deeper. I am going to say right now, um, disclaimer, trigger warning, whatever. I might say something during this. All of this will be internal dialogue that I've said to myself more than once and probably a lot more hateful than I'll say here. As well as I am not a therapist. I have been diagnosed by clinical therapists and my doctor. And anything that I have on there as far as my diagnosis comes from them. And any of the treatments was through them and we're all monitored. So I'm not advocating going out and self-treating for this stuff. I'm just going to list off some of the things that I went through and some of the things that were put on me and what finally got me through a lot of this. I'm just going to start off. I've got a little outline here, so please bear with me. So my mental struggles really kind of started in that November to December 2019. At that point, I'd lost about 200 pounds. Everybody was telling me what a good job I'd done, um, and how proud and all that stuff. And internally, I still wasn't seeing any difference. All the hard work, the weight was coming off. I felt phenomenal at that point, like better than I had in 15 or 20 years. But I still never saw it. I never saw the work, and I was getting frustrated because, yeah, the weight was coming off, but I didn't see the changes. And then somewhere probably about the beginning of December 2019, it's like I walked across the mirror at one point and it's just a switch flipped. And I've talked to several folks about that switch flipping that you go, whoa, who is this? And all of a sudden all the hard work comes rushing in. And it's like, oh, I've done this and now what have I done? Because who am I? And so you kind of start dealing with the new identity. And right in there, I started also feeling some self worth and some confidence that I hadn't had in probably since high school. So instead of feeling like I've heard people say I felt like furniture, or I was always the big fat guy that felt like looked over, and now all of a sudden I'm not. I'm not the biggest, heaviest dude around. I mean, I still kind of was at that point, but it was a graduation of that, and knowing that I'm going to continue this, and so that self worth and confidence that I've never had comes in, and so there's a war going on right there at the end of the year of you know you're combating I'm worthless versus no, I'm worth something, and so you're dealing with all of this, and that's kind of really what started like the whole January through May 2020. The beginning of the pandemic part. I didn't really focus on that because I'm self-employed. I'm kind of a hermit, anyways, so it the isolation wasn't that big of a deal. Um, and but it was still combating that I'm not worth this, or no, you are worth something. You're working on yourself. You're bettering yourself. Um, and also in this time too, I develop insomnia. I'm not sleeping. I'm sleeping in like 2 hour snippets because at this point I'm in such a go, go, go mode that anytime I relax, I feel lazy. And anytime I felt lazy, I started having thoughts of 700-pound worthless Justin. And that's just where it was at, was anytime I sat down and relaxed, instantly I felt fat. I felt worthless. And so sleeping is relaxing. So you lay down to sleep, your mind starts racing. What else could I be doing to better myself? And so this is it's constant fight. And you're like, I probably should talk to somebody, but no, I got this. I'm fixing my weight. I'm fixing my body. I can fix my head. And I mean, it is just snowballing. And I'm making great progress, and I decide at that point that I'm going to start this certification progress for, you know, DDPY, and decide to jump into that. So I'm trying to start that amid all this angst and frustration that I'm going through with, hey, I'm this new person, but I'm still living as that old person. And so it's, it was literally almost like a split personality. Like both sides are living at the same time and constantly warring in your head. So, um, and at this point, food wasn't an issue. I wasn't fighting the food addiction demon as much, you know. It was just constantly, I should be happy, but I'm not. And I'm constantly irritated. I'm short tempered, but I should be happy. So, you know, you're walking through anywhere with this big smile on your face because you should be happy, but inside you're ready to just tear the walls down because you don't know how to act. Another thing that had been pointed out was emotions that I deal with now and then are emotions I should have been dealing with back when I was in high school, or situations I should have learned to deal with in my 20s, you know, in mid 20s. But back then, I was just trying to survive physically. So learning all those little, you know, nuances and social norms and things, that wasn't an option for me because it was just, I have to make it through the day. I have to make it to the end of the workday. I have to keep moving. I have to keep walking. I have to keep. So I never had this learning curve of I need to act like this, or this is the way you should respond to that. And so all of this is crashing in. So I'm trying to learn X amount of this. No, you can't say that. You shouldn't act like this. That's not a proper response to that. And so going through that was just, it was really rough. Okay. So then I get into summer of 2020. My physical health has never been better. Like I'm straight machine at that point. I'm working out 2 hours a day, working in the yard. Still not real focused on my businesses per se. Not trying to better that, but still trying to better myself. But at the same time, my mental health is just going south. Like I'm almost to the irritable stages I was at my heaviest, and that's bad. Um, my I can so there's some in that spring of 2020 I was fighting some drainage issues in the yard, and I had this mountain of dirt out in the backyard, and my goal that summer was to get it moved with the wheelbarrow. But I had one of my episodes where I felt lazy, I couldn't do it. It was 100-degree heat. I'm listening to Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, and I go out and move 75 wheelbarrow loads of dirt in an afternoon, evening. And by the time I'm done, I'm cramping up, I'm hurting, but it was done. And so I know something's wrong. I know that's not a normal behavior. And then the next day, I felt like I needed to work harder. And so I'm burying all this emotions in work, and it's just not worth it. Let's see. Um, Constant mood swings. Like I can be happy one minute and the next minute, we call it spinning. So I guess I'll go ahead and just describe what I call a PTSD flare. For me, a PTSD flare is something triggers. For me, a lot of it is subconscious. I don't have like a smell trigger. I don't have a sight trigger. It's something that'll trigger in my subconscious, or it'll just come out of the blue. And what we call spinning is I just focus in on that problem, and that's all I can think about. That's all I can concentrate about. One of the best ways I can describe PTSD or an attack, and I've talked to several friends about this that have it. Pretend like you're walking your dog. This dog is your life. It's your best friend. And somebody walks up and kicks that dog as hard as they can. So you're mad, but that is all you focus on for the next 5 days is that incident. It doesn't matter how bad you hurt everybody around you, and you will shut everybody around you out. It doesn't matter except for thinking about that one episode that happened. That's all you can, and all you constantly get mad about it, and there's nothing you can do. It happened. So it's just it's being stuck in that constant frustration of what could I do? You know what? And there's nothing. I mean, at the end of the day, it happened. So, but not being able to get over that, and so you push everybody away. You hurt your family, you hurt your friends, and then at the end of 5 days, you realize, whoa, I've been focused on this, and that's not right. And now you have to apologize and grovel every week. or every 3 days or everything. So it's a constant beat down cycle of apologizing and feeling worthless because you can't control that. So um,
Very John Wick, isn't it?
it's yeah, it's a rough situation, and I I don't I don't I don't wish it on anybody, and I really kind of hope if they get into it that they get some help. Um,
And I will say this, that all PTSD flares and how it acts up is different for every single person.
yep,
See, mine came from being a correction officer. You know, I've been in situations where I've had to scoop people's heads back into their skull. I've cut 3 people down from trying to commit suicide. I watched a guy take a swan dive off a top tier and bounce his head off a stainless steel table. That kind of stuff is what mine, and it's most of the past stuff. But then I have little bits and pieces of what Justin's saying is about not recognizing the person and never satisfied with the amount of work that you're putting in. So that's kind of my double-edged sword, and I know other people theirs is completely different. So like Justin said, the best thing is to get help. Get somebody that can address the situation and get a plan together on if you need medication or if you need whatever you need. It's very important when it comes to this kind of issue.
yep. Well, so that summer we got into that, and summer 2020, and I had a couple of interactions in July that didn't turn out the way I needed to, and I had a few people tell me, hey, maybe something's a little off. And I'd been telling folks for a long time that I'm not the same person. I don't feel like the same person. I'm having to figure out who I am, and I kept getting, you're the same person. I'm like, whoa, no, I'm not. I'm not. I can't be that same person. And so working through that, and then it came to a head, and I went and talked to my doc. We had a conversation, and we talked for 20 minutes. In the end of July, great conversation. And about 20 minutes in, he looks at me. He said, "We need to talk very seriously." And I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Well, you have hit five of 8 markers for PTSD just in conversation." He said, "The way you're acting," and my doc down at the clinic is, I mean, they're trained to pick up on PTSD because that's a big thing within the community. And so he said, I broke in and told him what was going on, that I'd had some major depressive episodes lately. Told him about the mood swings, and he asked me about my sleeping. So we had a long, hard talk, and he put me in touch with the behavioral therapy section of the clinic, and he found the right therapist for me. And I went in August, and of course, there's a few sessions you go in, and I'm going to be honest with you right now. If you go to therapy, that first session is the scariest one you'll have because you amp yourself up thinking it's going to be miserable. Your first one is paperwork and answering yes or no questions. Don't worry about that one. Worry about the eighth one. But anyways, going back to that, went into those, and then I had my first one, and she at that point recommended I was diagnosed after a couple of sessions with PTSD, um, and it was like a past trauma type deal where I had suppressed so much stuff in the past because I was only focused on surviving that in my quiet times or my moments, those past traumas would come back and haunt me. And so it was like you know, somebody might have said something 15, 20 years ago that just now popped back in my head, and now it's trauma on top of today's anxieties. And I also had a body dysmorphia and just a couple other, like I said, dealing with emotions or prioritizing things. I would put, little things on top of big things where I should have been more focused on the bigger things. And so we stepped in. Um, one of my first one of my first exercises with EMDR therapy, and that's where they try to realign the right and left sides of your brain through light triggers and through voice cues. Um, That was okay to a point. And I think my therapist honestly and truly had me pegged by probably my fourth session, because we started out with EMDR, and then she recommended meditation, and then she recommended journaling, and then she recommended me read these books, and then she recommended something else. And so by December of 2020, I am meditating, reading, journaling, doing all of this crap, and I'm getting pissed. Like, because none of this is me. I don't journal, I don't meditate, I don't do any of this crap, and I'm getting so mad. And I'll have to come back because I got to tell you where I'm going with this. But she got all the way up to February. I'm driving to my appointment, and when I get there, I'm to the point where none of it's working. I am so mad that I'm shaking on the appointment drive over there. And I get there and I walk in and she goes, "You seem queued up." And I was like, "Oh, I'm mad." She goes, "Why?" I said, "Because this therapy's bullshit. EMDR therapy's bullshit. Your reading's bullshit. All of this is bullshit. And it's not working." And she's smiling. And she says, "Why is it bullshit?" Because I said, "I'm doing all of it and none of it's working." And she smiled and she said, "I never told you to do any of it. I recommended it." She said, "You are the one that's piled it on top of yourself. You're the one that's building all this stuff up." And then after she opened that up, I went back, of course, in Dobbins fashion, and drafted up my own plan on how to deal with what I was. Took it back to her. She said, "Okay, we did it for a month, and it's what worked for me." I finally, and she was laughing, and she told me at that point that she was adding all those things to push me to the point of doing it myself, because that's what I had to do with my weight loss. And that's what finding the perfect fit of a therapist was for me, was she knew how to push my buttons and get me to where I needed to be. And that's why I will always recommend getting therapy if you are having any kind of issues whatsoever, because she got me to a point where I was ready to attack it. So, um, I want to go back real quick. Sorry, we'll circle back around once, just to fall 2020, where I was contacted by DDPY. They had reached out to me after I'd lost 350 pounds and wanted to do a YouTube story. And so they had visited, and recorded some footage of me in my home, and asked me some questions. And we're preparing the video. And then I got a call that later on that fall that I had placed third place in their Positively Unstoppable contest. And in the midst of this, I'm going through EMDR therapy and I'm working on my PTSD. So I bring this contest up to say I'm working through some pretty intense mental things. And then to get all this excitement thrown in on top of it, that was a huge ball of emotions to work through that winter of 2020 and into 2021, because you're caught up in all this, glitz, and all the hey, we're going to the performance center, and we've been working out and doing these workouts now for this year, and this is an awesome thing. And it was amazing. But it also, I was putting expectations on that win on myself that weren't fair. I was going to, once we got back, I held myself to a higher standard and I worked out harder, and I just put that much more pressure on myself because I felt like I needed to. Where, man, I'd already lost my weight. I was in the best shape in my life, and I really didn't have anything to prove at that point. And that was a humbling experience later this spring when I got to a really low point again. And so celebrate your victories, but really focus in on why you're doing something. Really focus in on why you're changing, and try not to let all the outside things influence how you go about, your process. And I really did get caught up in that, and it was a mess till after the first of the year. Going through some more of the therapy and getting a few things, figured out. Um, I had hit several low spots last spring doing it on my own, and it was just trying to figure it out. I did a lot of work, physical labor. Found as my outlet. That's how I burn off the most of my energy for PTSD and how to deal with it, and a lot of my anxiety. Also, accomplishing things, small goals that I set out throughout the day, um, and I'm not going to go through my complete mental toolbox because I feel like those are personalized, and you're going to only get those through working through these, with somebody who can help you through your particular needs. And so I got to May of this year, and I was still having PTSD flares, not as severe. I'd gone from, where I would have bad weeks in the previous fall to this past spring in 2021 where I might have an episode or two a week. Um, One of the great resources and one of the most awesome things that I gained during the contest was the rest of the Unstoppable Four, Caitlin, Scotty, and Candy. And they have been a huge, huge resource for me. I say resource. How do I put it? Blessing, a huge blessing to me this past year to be able to reach out with these little manic episodes. And don't get me wrong, I have a great support system at home, but it's been a great resource to be able to reach out and have that. So I worked through the spring of 2021 and was getting down to where I was just having a few flares, kind of here and there. And then May started out, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was temperature change. I really don't understand what happened, but it got bad. And it got bad enough to where I thought I wanted to be medicated because at that point I'd gone in for a couple of tune up therapy sessions. Nothing was really working. And I really don't know what happened. And then I got to looking at my daughters at that point, and then my why came back. I got that drive. I got that. I want to fix this because. And I also in May realized that I'd carried since December that I still had to lose weight. I hit 297 probably 6 different times through spring of 2021. I'd gotten as low as 295 once, but every time I got below the 300 mark, I would get physically sick because getting down that low, I had to eat so low of calories with my size. I'm a big boy. I'm going to need enough calories to function. And to get that low, I was eating in a deficit that I didn't need to be at. I finally had to realize that my healthy weight is between 310 and 315. And no matter how much I want it to be below that, it's not going to be. I'm healthy where I'm at. But it also took several people reminding me that I am carrying literally 50 pounds of useless tissue. I'll never lose it. There's nothing I can do. There's no tricks. It's going to have to be surgically removed. And so taking that into consideration, I'm really only about 265, 270. So that's for a 6'7", and that just getting those numbers in your head and realizing that is one of the healing things. Is I've hit my goal. I'm going to fluctuate up and down, and there's nothing you can really do about that, and it's going to happen. But you can't keep trying to drop if you're making yourself sick. So that is something to look out for if you're coming towards the end of your weight loss. So looking at my daughters in May, refocused, decided that I'm done losing weight. So I don't have to worry about that anymore. And that was a concern. And I think that was something that was keeping me back from really healing in my mental spot was I feel like I have to keep losing weight. And I felt like if I quit concentrating on my food that I would slip up and start eating off my nutrition plan. And it took a couple of people, mainly one of them, my wife, saying, "Hey, you've gone 2.5 years without slipping up. What makes you think you're going to now?" And the same thing with when I realized that I'm done losing weight, the pressure of my nutrition and losing weight was gone. So that let me focus on my PTSD. And through the summer, I was able to work 12-hour days if I wanted to in the heat. I was, doing really, really well. And I got kind of cocky. And then I had to put this down on the outline. I actually started having some flares over the last few weeks. I was doing well up until September. I realized I'd reached all my goals that I'd set for myself physically. Mentally, I thought, hey, I beat PTSD, and then the time change happened. And when that time change happened, it really affected me this year, worse than it ever has. Because I'd been used to all summer working from morning till the time the sun went down. And then when it got dark, that was my hour workout. I'd eat a little dinner and go to bed and then get up and do it the same. Well, when it gets dark at 5 o'clock, you're kind of done. And then it gets cold. So then you're inside. And I was dealing with some issues that I kind of glossed over the year before because of, going through those treatments and then the excitement of the contest. So a few things popped up, and I'm not afraid to admit that over the last 2 weeks, I've probably had about 6 of my episodes. I mean, I had a really bad one at one point where I was just not doing well. And I know there's people I can reach out to, but there are times where you just have to face up to it. And this was one of those times. And I'm not saying that I'm not done fighting, but I feel pretty good this week. I worked through a few issues. I've got a few new tools in place. And for the last probably 4 days, I've felt great. Um, just, I've realized that I'm never going to defeat the PTSD like I did the weight loss and my food addiction. It is going to be something that I'm just going to have to learn to live with. And when I feel those emotions coming up, I'm just going to have to use my tools to control them the best I can, because I'm realizing more and more, and something I've been talking to some friends with, and uh, we can't control what's happened to us. We can't control what's going to happen to us. We can't control our emotions because those are raw and they are elemental. We don't have any choice over how we react emotionally. What we do have is control how we react to something on the outside. So that has been my focus for the last week is, yeah, that is affecting me and I don't like that. But I don't need to reflect that negativity. I can take it in, I can process it, and if I need to rage and take it out on the mat or the anvil later, that's fine. But blowing up in that situation and melting down doesn't help anything. It actually makes it worse. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I'm hoping that this continues, and I'm going to continue to work on it. But I will say that the mental work is 1,000 times harder than any of the physical work ever was, and I'm not trying to scare you, but it is a lot more work than the physical. I would rather lose the 400 pounds 3 more times than deal with the mental struggles. But I do know that every day that I get closer to getting the mental stuff under control, it opens up so many more avenues, and life gets that much better. So that's my TED talk for the moment. I'm If anybody has any questions, feel free to DM me. I'm an open book on this stuff. I hope I answer some questions, and that's what I have.
We appreciate the testament to your strength there, bud.
Thank
I
you.
do have to ask though, when you were, first approached for the challenge, and you're still fighting through the mental battles of the PTSD and trying to sort of keep the inner sanctum, sacred. How did you react to that when people are asking you questions about this? Did it make you sort of retreat into yourself, or is this something that you embraced and brought it out?
The mental health stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not want to talk about it at all. But I didn't want to talk about my weight loss journey at all. Like I didn't want to tell people what I weighed. I didn't want to tell them that I was losing that much. But I wanted to reach out to several people that had lost massive amounts of weight, and I'd actually talked to Caitlin, Scotty, and Candy while we were down at the down in Atlanta last year. That I would love to talk to some of the bigger folks that have lost massive amounts of weight, because is this PTSD something normal? Is all this body dysmorphia something normal? And nobody knew. Like my doc and therapist didn't know. They did say that I guess gastric bypass recipients have to go through some psychological stuff. They put some stuff in place because massive amounts of weight loss aren't good for the brain, especially not in the amount of time that you lose it. And so doctors, he said he never saw this coming. My doc admitted, and he's apologized more ways than he can, because you have somebody my size come in and say, "Hey, I'm going to do this." You're thinking years, not less than two, like under 2 years. He just, and so they weren't ready for that. So back to your question, I did not want to talk about it. It was not easy for me to talk about. It was really hard for me to admit for months that I even had PTSD, because you don't want to say, hey, I have PTSD, because I'm not a veteran. I feel like PTSD is something that has to be earned by, like, you know,
Trauma.
by veterans, but it's not. It's not, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. But so when I got to that point, I started seeing more and more people asking, hey, are these feelings normal? And I felt like at that point somebody needed to step up and talk about it. And I already kind of had a platform with my weight loss, so that's when I decided to start talking about all the struggles. So hopefully it helps. I know that my approach is not for everybody, um, but it is what has gotten me results. So
Yeah.
yeah,
But we
did
know a
I?
lot of people look up to you for that. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you're sharing a lot of this because, like you said, there's not enough transparency in a lot of health and fitness communities about the work on both sides. You can do all the body fixing you want, but if it's not
Yep.
you reflecting on the inside and up in your head, it's not going to be a full success,
Right.
holistically. And I think that's a lot of what we're seeing, particularly when people are making posts about that and they're looking for recognition from another person that they're not alone in this. I think each of us could say, we've been through a mental health challenge of some kind, right? And there's some sort of journey. We're all at different parts of that, right?
Mhm.
But the fact is that, like, if you're not working on that, you're not going to see the results that you're looking for at the end of the day. So I think, I appreciate you sharing that because it's an ongoing journey, something that you continue to fight as you're explaining, and that it's something that you're going to always have to work on. But, it's so great that you can actually say that because other people, I'm sure, are sitting here going, I'm the only one dealing with this. Nobody gets it. But, there are people out there that are dealing with these things. We do get it. We're
Mhm.
there, and
Yep.
things. So it's just wonderful.
And the fact that we're bringing attention that there's multiple kinds, like you said, you don't have to go through that big trauma to get PTSD. There's various forms, and my story is going to be different than Justin's, and Justin's is going to be different. And so the approaches that we take are going to have to be different. So getting that support system at home, getting some friends that you can talk to and lean on when you have those struggles, and getting the right fit as a therapist is going to be very important. And just identifying those problems early and talking early is going to be huge. Luckily, I had Justin when I was starting. He warned me that the week 3 was going to be a bitch, and he was right on. And so I still go through the body dysmorphia and all that, as long as far as everybody else that's gone more than 100 pounds, it's just part of it. So definitely make sure you're talking to people. Find that group of core people that you can trust, that you can share, and because I guarantee you're not alone in
Mhm.
that. So
No, and don't ever be ashamed of asking for help. Seriously, that I cannot stress that enough. I know not asking for help has almost led me to something really, really bad in the past, and I know that not asking for help all last summer wasn't good. Um, I don't. It would have never have got to a bad point, but I know I wasn't healthy. I know I wasn't happy. Um, and getting that under control really helped me fine tune the rest of my weight loss. That really helped dial in and get me kind of set up for that, and then maintaining. Um, so I highly recommend, if you're having any kind of issues, please, if you're in one of those areas where counseling is hard to get to, I'm actually started looking at some of these online options. I'm trying to get a list together of ones that I've heard on different podcasts that have different options, different pay options. I'm not saying I'm going to do a lot of research, but we'll try to do some reviews and maybe pop those up on our website if we find one that's credible. I think we'll probably all kind of look around at some of those. Maybe that's an option, because I know some people live out in the sticks and maybe have an internet connection and can't make it to an office. And I know they also have options for payments too. So please reach out, um, if you are feeling anything like that.
Thanks for tuning in today. Thanks again to our special guest, Justin Dobbins, for telling his experience. Please leave your comments and questions in the box below. And be sure to check out our website at the next90%.com.